his small-town firefighting crew. He knew promotions were few and far between, but he wouldn't swap his trees for apartments if they offered him double pay. He'd been lucky when Cassidy had kept the lieutenant's post open for him 3 years ago. Karen glanced at him as he climbed in. "We're just double-checking it's deserted." Lucas nodded, and they drove out past the small fire camp they had slept at for the past week. He had seen the new area when it was cleared. "How come the chopper's not still looking?" Ricky asked Lucas. Ricky was their probie. 9 months on the job so far. "Because the fires west of Fort Collins need them all. We're done except for the mopping up," Jacko answered for him. Ricky nodded and looked out the window, and Lucas followed his gaze. The countryside was beautiful in winter. Not that he didn't appreciate the sun, but the dry weather brought so many problems with it, and they seemed to have completely skipped past fall this year. Over the years, he had known Greeley and Somerton to get the occasional snow flurry in September. He wasn't the only firefighter who cheered that day. "When was the report of smoke made?" Jacko said. "This morning at 06:30, but the chopper made a second pass and nothing was seen, so they thought it was just smoke being carried from Area 2, Karen explained. "There are only 3 intact cabins, but another 6 or so are in various stages of construction, and there's a clubhouse that's going to house some stores and possibly a restaurant in high season. They were hoping to open this section in the spring, but the contractor went under, and there seems to be some dispute about who owns what, so it's been standing empty." It took another 15 minutes to reach the deserted cabins, and Lucas peeled himself out of the utility vehicle, not wanting to admit he had been struggling to keep his gritty eyelids up for the last 5. "I can't get a signal," Karen reported, almost instantly looking at her radio, and Lucas nodded toward the 50-foot-high granite cliff face to the back of the cabins. That explained the poor reception. The makings of a road had been started at the base of the cliff, but it ended on the rise, going nowhere. The forest stretched high behind the road, and smoke trailed from it. Lucas looked west. You could see the billowing black cloud, but it was blowing away from them. He didn't like it. The fires might be contained, but the cabins were slam in the middle, and it looked like the construction was going to include a lake. The area had been excavated but was overgrown with tall grasses. Another fire hazard. He turned and walked to the first cabin. It didn't even have a roof, and it took barely a few seconds to confirm there was no one there. Not that he had expected anyone. Karen led into the second cabin. This was a little more finished. The roof and walls were constructed and intact, but there was no interior finish. He looked around for another minute, and then followed Jacko into the third. On the surface, this one was as unoccupied as the rest, and while a quick search showed it was empty, there was an old sleeping bag and the detritus of a fire in the grate. Lucas stripped off his glove and checked the half-burned twigs. They were cold. Someone might have slept in here, but not recently. He looked up as Karen called out and went into the second room. She was looking at something on the floor and bent down to pick it up. "What is it?" "A protein bar, unopened." She turned it over in her hand. "It's in date." Jacko shrugged. "Those things are good for months." "But bread isn't," Karen said, the urgency and worry apparent in her voice. There was an old rucksack on the floor that looked abandoned, with a half-eaten plastic-wrapped peanut butter sandwich in it. The bread didn't look appealing, but he would have said it was 2 days old at best. "What do you think?" "Search everything," Lucas instructed, and they all fell into a practiced rhythm. After 10 minutes of going through the partially built cabins, Lucas was satisfied no one was there. All that was left was a large structure that had been intended to be the clubhouse. "Maybe it was someone passing through that decided to move quicker when they saw the smoke," Jacko suggested. Lucas nodded, but his skin prickled. "But you don't think so," Karen said flatly, her brown eyes flashing respect. Technically, after her promotion, she was his superior, but the respect was mutual. He shook his head, not knowing exactly how to express the feeling in his gut. "Let's do a thorough check." There was what looked like some partially built storage structures behind the cabin. "Lieutenant," Ricky called. Lucas, Karen, and Jacko all went to the cabin door. Ricky was pointing toward the black smoke that was definitely not blowing in the opposite direction anymore. "Shit," Lucas said. The wind had shifted. "Is the radio working?" Ricky shook his head and swallowed nervously. "Jacko, get the truck going. Ricky, go with him. Karen, come with me." Everyone moved quickly, and Lucas tried